The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Television, radio, internet, the world. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the post-show from the Pro Wrestling Report. We're live here on Blog Talk Radio right after TNA's Against All Odds on pay-per-view, a pay-per-view where we saw a new champion crowned. Dameon Nelson coming to you here from the Pro Wrestling Report radio studios, along with David Octavius, the Tiberius, the Hall of Famer.
The Hall of Famer.
Herro. David, TNA Against All Odds going through the pay-per-view, and we're going to go over it match by match. There wasn't much that happened. There wasn't much noteworthy, but the last two matches really did show that there was something to be done on this pay-per-view tonight. We are accepting your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen, here on Blog Talk Radio. The number to call, 347-996-5278. Again, that's 347-996-5278. We're also going to be reading some of your comments on our Twitter and Facebook feeds. Our Twitter username is @PWR Show, and right now we're about to send out a tweet asking you, pass or fail for TNA's Against All Odds tonight. Now, the only way you can vote on that is if you watched the pay-per-view. All right? Not fair to vote on it if you didn't watch it. Our Facebook page, you can go to pwrshow.com, click on the link in the top right-hand side of the page, and click on through to our Facebook page. Lots of comments on the new world champion in TNA Wrestling, David Herro, Jeff Hardy, defeating Ken Anderson, taking back the TNA World Heavyweight Championship in a ladder match in the main event of tonight's Against All Odds pay-per-view, a pay-per-view that just ended about 5 minutes ago.
You know, boy, where do you start with this pay-per-view?
I mean, it starts off shaky because Hardy Boys White aren't going to be there because of travel problems. And then you have a number one contenders match. It's not a match.
Looks like we're having some trouble hearing you here, so
let me call you back.
All right, let's do that. All right, we'll get to David Herro in a minute. Again, as we said, a brand new world champion in TNA Wrestling, and that is Jeff Hardy. Now, going into this, it seemed like that may indeed end up being the case because Immortal doesn't have any gold anymore. With the breaking off of Fortune, it left gold to be acquired. And tonight we would see Jeff Hardy become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Other things of significance tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Jarrett defeating Kurt Angle. Jeff Jarrett defeats Kurt Angle, which means Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett now, get custody of the children. This one ended in a very unique fashion. It ended with a sunset roll-up, on Angle by Jarrett for the 1-2-3. This after several strokes, including one off the top rope and several other things, including a chair shot. However, this Thursday night on Impact, it is going to be the beginning of the transition of custody from Kurt Angle to Jeff and Karen Jarrett. A bit of a unique storyline, a storyline that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but one that it proved to be entertaining on tonight's pay-per-view. Again, we want to welcome everybody joining us in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio. Lots of discussion going on right now about the TNA Against All Odds pay-per-view tonight. D Saint, username in the chat room, saying pass as regards to the pay-per-view, but the booking at times did seem incoherent. Fueled System saying WCW's Great American Bash was great tonight. And Yves Supreme Extraterrestrial saying Angle Jarrett storyline is finally stale. So, again, your comments, your interaction, that's what this show is all about. That is what this show is all about. The Pro Wrestling Report. We're live on Blog Talk Radio. I want to go ahead and let you know now, just before you get sorry about that. David Herro was trying to chime in. Just got a text from him. Before we get too deep into this, tomorrow night on the ESPN radio show, we are live every Monday night right after WWE Raw on ESPN Radio, and our guest tomorrow night will be the Honky Tonk Man, Oh, yeah, he's going to have his hair slicked back and his blue suede shoes, the Honky Tonk Man, for the first time on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. So be sure to tune in for that. You can listen here live on Blog Talk Radio as well. And let's go to a caller. We've got a caller from the Connecticut area code. And callers, the way we're going to identify you is by your area code. And once we do that, feel free to let us know your name and where you're calling from. Our first caller comes to us from the 203 area code. Caller, you're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I am from Connecticut. My name is Dylan.
Okay. What'd you think of tonight's pay-per-view from TNA Wrestling?
I'll give it a 5.
You said a 5?
5. It was all right. It wasn't that good. The ending wasn't that great at all. I think that Anderson should have held it at least for another month or maybe the March 3rd Impact. But I don't think that title reign should have even happened.
It was a very short title reign, and many are saying that the end of that matchup and the way it went was both men were on the ladder, Anderson going for the mic check from the top of the ladder after he had caused the belt to swing violently, thus not allowing Jeff Hardy to get his hands on it. Well, he falls, Jeff Hardy falls, and it seemed as if at that moment Jeff Hardy was supposed to have grabbed the title because a few moments go by, Jeff Hardy sets the ladder back up, climbs up, and grabs the championship to become the new TNA World Heavyweight Championship. A bit of a messy finish to that match.
Well, it looks like TNA's ladders aren't that steady. Maybe they should get ladders, because every single ladder match that they have, they're always, like, rocking or swaying. They're not really that good. Like, WWE's ladders are a lot better. They're just, like, the ladder that TNA uses, they're pieces of shit.
Wow, okay. All right, well, thank you very much for that call from out in Connecticut. We're waiting for David Herro to join us here live after a communications error at the beginning of the show. In the meantime, let's go over some of the other matches on the card, then we'll get back to your phone calls. Again, the number is 347-996-5278. I almost gave everybody David Herro's number out there, 347-996-5278. Another matchup that really had a substantial finish to it was Bully Ray versus Dvon. Earlier in the night, Dvon telling his sons that they would not be allowed to participate in the match being a street fight. Well, they did, of course, get involved. As a matter of fact, Bully Ray pinning one of them and then attacking them both after the matchup. Now, I got to say, this was presented very well. I question, though, if people still have any emotional attachment or investment in either Bully Ray or Dvon. David Herro has joined us again. Your thoughts on that matchup? It was a street fight. Bully Ray gets the win.
Well, I guess going into the pay-per-view, I wasn't thrilled to be a part of it, to watch that match, but they were able to make an emotional investment into it. Obviously, they're going to be going into lockdown, where it'll be Bully Ray against Dvon in a cage, probably, where they can settle it, but boy, they are getting a lot of mileage out of these two guys. And
a lot of mileage.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, is it going to sell pay-per-views for them? Probably not, but I guess overall with the pay-per-view, I guess I couldn't be that upset with too many of the finishes tonight because it was done right.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, I don't know if I can sit through another Bubba Ray and Dvon match.
You know what I got to say about tonight's pay-per-view, though? If you look at TNA Wrestling, obviously we know what's going on with Kevin Nash and know what's going on with Booker T. They're over in World Wrestling Entertainment. But if you really look at the show overall, no Sting. You had no Hogan, no Bischoff. You had a lot of stars formerly of WWE, but really none of those 40-plus stars, not many of those 40-plus stars. So a lot of that sort of gets covered up when people are looking at these pay-per-views. And I think that's a substantial point, that this pay-per-view featured, for the most part, TNA talent of the last several years.
Well, I mean, you of course, with the main event, you have Ken and Jeff. But, yeah, I mean, Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle, they had a main event type match. And then, Beer Money. It was good to see Fortune being used properly. Even though they didn't have a match for AJ, he was still out there, And they're definitely, hey, here's what it comes down to at TNA. Either they establish their own stars, they play with their own toys, or they're just going to keep going out there and bringing in, talent that's been showcased, on Raw and SmackDown for the last couple of years and bury their own homegrown talent again. So, I mean, I guess it's almost like a rebrand or rebuild with TNA, and it's unfortunate that they didn't do this off the bat when Hogan and Bischoff first came in.
WAPW Pro X Wrestling in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio says TNA needs to start pushing its originals, not the WWE former talent. El Cybernetico saying, wow, 40-plus ex-WWE superstars. Rachel Brands saying, I'm so happy for Jeff Hardy. He totally deserved the win and the title. So let's get to a couple more of the matches that occurred here tonight.
You know what, though, Dameon? When they say stop pushing the guys from Raw and SmackDown, the problem is the guys from Raw and SmackDown, even if they were mid-card guys, are still more well-known than some of the main event stars that TNA had. So
absolutely,
they had to use those guys to help elevate what TNA, what they have, and that's why that they had to use, why they brought in like a Val Venus in the beginning. Guys like that where, okay, I can recognize him. I know who that is.
We want to thank all of you who are listening and who are joining us here on Blog Talk Radio in the chat room. Our website is pwrshow.com, and we want to thank all of you who listen here on Blog Talk Radio because, David Herro, right now as we speak, we are the most popular sports show on all of Blog Talk Radio, and we can't do that without you following and favoriting the show so that you never miss an episode. And as I said, tomorrow night, the Honky Tonk Man is our guest on our ESPN radio show. David Herro, another match you said was tremendous with a hash mark in front of it. Matt Hardy versus Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam getting the win over Matt Hardy with the 5-star frog splash, a match that I thought was solid and went longer than I would have expected, which allowed both men to showcase their talents.
Both guys, I thought, they've both been called lazy in the past, that they're just phoning it in, not working hard. Both those guys worked really hard tonight. It was a far better match than I thought was going to. I thought for sure we would get a repeat from last month's Matt Hardy versus RVD. But those two guys went out there and they told a story, and it wasn't just a called in match. They actually worked hard, and I don't know if the IWC will give Matt Hardy his credit where it's due, but from last month's match with Rob to where he was tonight, it was a significant difference.
Indeed, it was a good matchup from those two. And before that matchup, Matt Hardy explaining a little bit more about what this cold blood thing is, talking about his time in WWE, the release or the departure of his brother, Jeff Hardy, and then his signing with TNA Wrestling as well. But before that, David Herro, we saw something or had something that was a little unique and something that really probably would have been a lot smarter. David, are you okay there?
Oh, I'm here, yeah.
A lot smarter to have done on an Impact, because now people are going to tune in on Thursday and not quite understand where Hernandez is coming from. Hernandez coming out and doing probably one of the most stiff anti-American promos I've ever heard, but one that I think loses its impact, loses its luster, because it happened on a pay-per-view where arguably, no need to argue, substantially fewer people are watching TNA on pay-per-view than the 2 million or so that watch on Thursday nights.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why TNA does that. I mean, maybe they had some time to fill and they bring out Hernandez early, but yeah, they definitely wasted. Well, but at the same time, that promo that Hernandez cut, it wasn't TV friendly.
Not at all. Not at all.
So maybe that's why they had to put it on the pay-per-view. I don't get it. I just, tonight's pay-per-view seemed like I was watching Impact.
Sunday Impact. It wasn't just being in Orlando, because a lot of times you default to that. Tonight's pay-per-view, aside from the last 2, maybe 3 matchups, nothing substantial really happened, and none of the matches really had that big event feel to it. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. Obviously, credit goes out to all the men and women who put their bodies and lives on the line in the middle of that ring tonight and did so very entertainingly and did so very graciously. Credit also goes to Mike Tenay and Taz. Taz has his faults. We've talked about them many times on the Pro Wrestling Report. But tonight, Mike Tenay and Taz, when they needed to, after the Jared Angle match and after the Dudley's match, did their part in putting the angle over, and arguably, David Herro, the broadcasters and the announcers sometimes play as significant a role as the talent in the ring.
Well, it's up to the broadcasters and the announcers to get those angles over to tell the fans what they're not seeing or what they're missing. I mean, I thought that Taz did a great job explaining about how Dvon got handcuffed behind the turnbuckle, so he couldn't go anywhere. It's like, okay, wow, you know what? They're paying attention. Now they're going to help them tell the story. But yeah, I'm quick to criticize Taz or whoever pretty quickly, but I thought Taz, for the most part, called a pretty good show tonight.
Absolutely. And again, we're taking your comments. We're going to get to them in a minute on your overall thoughts on the pay-per-view on Twitter. Our Twitter username is @PWR Show, and we've got some great feedback from that, including Real Russo is the username, saying best pay-per-view of 2011. That's bound to stir up some discussion. You know what I got to say, David Herro?
Okay, what is that?
A lot of comments tonight when things didn't quite go the way they may have liked it, immediately defaulted to fire Russo. This is Russo again. I'm not sure that Vince Russo, and I'm not defending him, maybe I am, deserves all this immediate criticism when something ridiculous, including, 874 different low blows tonight, happened on a TNA show. There are so many more people involved with that than just Vince Russo.
You know, it's more than the low blows. I mean, Russo doesn't script out what happens in the match.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're given bullet points as to what they would like to see, but it's up to the talent to actually put together the match and the agents as well. One of the things tonight, I'll be honest, I mean, I'm not a big fan that, Ken lost the belt tonight. I think he lost it too quick, but they had to do it that way because of how Immortal and Fortune have fallen apart, okay? I understand why they had to do that. Okay, I get that. The other thing I didn't get, though, was with, the Jersey Shore guy, Robbie E.
His hair? I didn't get that either.
Well, no. I mean, he becomes number one contender. They build up this big tournament to have a triple threat match for the number one contender, right? And within seconds of him becoming the number one contender, even by forfeit, it's gone. He gets his title match, not on his own terms, and it's over with. So it's like, wow, they wasted 3 or 4 weeks of having us say, wow, okay, there's a tournament to get into this X Division, match. And they ruined it. Those are the only two things I had a problem with the pay-per-view. I liked the finishes of all the other matches tonight. I had no problem. I'm sorry?
Kaz does retain the TNA X Division Championship in that matchup, and as we said, or maybe didn't say, but as well known, Generation Me not able to make it due to travel problems, legit travel problems tonight to the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and you know what? That is on TNA. I mean, fly the guys in the night before.
Right.
I mean, there's with all the different problems with weather and engine problems and whatnot, when flights aren't full and they cancel stuff, it's like, come on. Get them there early, But, yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Robbie E. I think they should have, he should have had it, won it by default, that's fine, and let him brag about how he won the number one contendership. Make it into something bigger than just, okay, let's have Kaz come out there and beat him right away, 1, 2, 3.
If you think back to when Jersey Shore, Robbie E. and Cookie debuted in TNA, and we both completely had nothing good to say about that, and to look at the fact that those two are two of the most entertaining aspects of the weekly TNA wrestling right now.
I mean, they're characters, and that's what wrestling is missing. They need more characters, and Robbie E. and Cookie, I mean, they help fill that void. But I just feel bad for him, as a performer, that he couldn't have gone on Impact and say, ha, look at me, I'm number one contender, and totally ignore the fact that it was by forfeit. Build it up that, hey, he's number one. Let him get over on Kaz once in a while, and then have a big match for it. But it's an example of them taking 2 steps forward. Sometimes they still take those 3 steps back.
So you're saying that maybe they should watch some tapes of The Miz from the last few months and learn from his antics. Miz, the WWE champion, going into WrestleMania.
Well, You know what? Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, let him be the coward, number one contender. I would have no problem with that. It would make sense.
Mickie James versus Madison Rayne for the Knockouts Championship was the last knockout standing match. Madison Rayne retains after using brass knuckles after interference by Tara. Madison Rayne still the Knockouts champion, a title she's held for a very long time.
I thought that was booked well too. I mean, why not have if Mickie James beats Madison in a knockout or last knockout standing, well then there's no reason for them to have another match. And right now, there's no other heel on the knockout side that is ready to go into a program with Mickie James. I think that was done well. I mean, if I would have booked it earlier, I probably would have chosen Mickie James to win just because I'm used to TNA putting over former WWE stars so quickly. But
Mickie hasn't had the belt yet, though.
No, she hasn't had it yet. And you know what? Good for TNA for establishing Madison Rayne to be as good, if not better, than Mickie James. They're doing a great job with that. And I liked how they booked that match.
David Herro, about 1 year ago to the day, almost 1 year ago to the day, you said a certain TNA talent would never headline a pay-per-view. And tonight, Samoa Joe took on that certain TNA talent, and Samoa Joe wins after the Pope taps out.
Tap, 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 tap. Isn't that like some song right now called Tap?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, how about that? A year later, it'll prove itself, and it did. I just don't see. Now, there's another example of how I have no problem with the finish of the match. I mean, it made Pope tap out cowardly, and that's great, good for him, because it just keeps him strong, or whatnot. But and of course, Taz and Tenay mentioned how quickly he tapped out to live to fight another day. Makes sense, but that angle was rushed also. I mean, they could have had Joe and Pope be a team for a while, and then eventually Joe get leery and concerned and then check out Pope as to what's going on behind closed doors kind of thing, but they rushed it. And I don't know. It
was rushed.
Pope and Joe, we're going to see it again for another pay-per-view, I'm guessing.
Another match. Another match to discuss.
How about Okado? I mean, what do they do? Do they, call up Seth Rogen and say, hey, can we borrow your sidekick for the night?
Wow.
How amazing is that? If you saw Green Hornet, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't go to movies. The next matchup we're going to talk about is Money Incorporated teaming up with the Big Bad Booty, Daddy Scott Steiner, going up against Rob Terry and the Immortal Security Force of Murphy and Gunner. No surprise as Money Inc., Beer Money Incorporated, wins that matchup along with Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner with a Frankensteiner off the top rope.
I tweeted out when I called the Rob Terry team the jacked up Mean Street Posse, okay?
Yes.
And it was with no disrespect. It's just that's what I thought of when I saw those guys.
Oh, it's like calling Jinmi the Young Hardys or the Hardys Light.
Exactly. That's what I think of when I see them, but let's see. Where do you start with this one?
I'm not sure you do. We're just, for the record, we've got 6 minutes of showtime left with 3 callers.
Well, then we'll talk about this tomorrow night. How does that sound?
Absolutely. And tomorrow night we will be live on ESPN Radio, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, right after WWE Raw. The Honky Tonk Man will be our guest.
How about that?
Tomorrow night on ESPN Radio. You can also listen live right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're going to be discussing more about TNA's Against All Odds pay-per-view, and we want to apologize for the lack of PWR primetime television last week. David Herro, the Blizzard took out the TV studios, and we expected that all to get fixed by Friday morning so we can go in and tape a show. However, they did not get done with that until just this morning. So we'll be back into the TV studios in Milwaukee tomorrow, this week for primetime, where Be the Booker for WWE's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view will take place.
Special Be the Booker for that one, huh? How about that?
A couple of comments on Twitter. We're going to get to those in a minute. You're passing or failing grade for TNA Against All Odds. Let's get to a couple of phone callers now. We've got a caller calling in from the 973 area code. Caller from the 973, you're live.
What's up, guys? Great show as always. Amazing work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
That's how you do a pay-per-view event. I mean, first of all, shout out to all the other creatures of the night listening in the chat room and everything. I mean, I was so expecting them to give all the little a-holes something to pop about at the end, but no, Jeff Hardy comes back, and that's awesome. So hopefully they're going to elevate the Hardy Boys now. And I'll make this quick because I know you guys are very limited here on the time. Bubba Ray was off the charts, and that was a total nice thing to see there. And him backstage with Christy was just, the backstage there was just really, really tight.
I said that earlier during that. It reminded me of Dr. Evil and his kid when he was throwing the basketball. I think you can quit. You can cry. You can squirt. Anyways.
But that's how you do a pay-per-view. I was very pleased with that. I'll let you take the other calls. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you very much for that caller. A Jeff Hardy supporter, a person who thought tonight's pay-per-view was a pass. Let's go to a caller in the 440 area code. Caller, you're live.
Hello. Just think that the local TNA pay-per-views just they don't feel big, and it's in WWE. I mean, all their presentation, it's all the same. It's the same entrance. Well, not the same entrance way, but it's the same big feel of Raw, but they redo the entranceway. They redo this little. They redo shots.
It has a special look. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Exactly, and it just I don't know. The pay-per-view was just very meh to me. The ending, it seemed rushed, like Jimmy Corderos was saying on Twitter, and I just thought that it was, I don't know, it just seemed like a bigger impact. That's about it. It doesn't seem like a pay-per-view at all.
All right. Thank you very much for that call. And one of the challenges we talked about earlier, one of the challenges is being in the same venue, having the same show look as your weekly program. And again, I don't necessarily fault TNA for that strategy, but I think you'll be impressed when you see the live Impact, which is being taped on February 24th, going to air on March 3rd. And then we did learn that Lockdown will be on the road in Cincinnati, Ohio. Let's go to our caller, our final caller of the evening in the 832 area code. Caller, quickly, what do you have for us, and what's your name?
Yeah, this is Ricardo from Houston, Dameon.
Hello, Ricardo.
Hey, thank God for the Grammys, because this was a complete waste of time for me. The one thing that really upsets me about TNA real quick is how sloppy the wrestling is. For example, the main event was very sloppy. They're wasting my time, basically, except for the Hernandez segment when Justin Bieber was singing. I muted that crap, and I was watching Hernandez all the time because I thought I can't stand Justin Bieber. But anyways,
a pass or fail?
Oh, tough. Chew out the ass, but just fell. Fell.
All right. Well, Ricardo from Houston, we do have to cut you off. On that note, thank you very much for your call and all the other callers. And also thank you to all of you chatting in the chat room. That chat will continue after we go off the air in just a couple minutes. But David on Twitter, just summarizing some of the statements we asked, our Twitter name, @PWR Show, we asked pass or fail. And we've got some feedback here. Charles Petrus saying, talking about actually the Pope. What are you talking about? The Pope was in the main event of Against All Odds 2010 pay-per-view versus Mr. Anderson. I guess that was for you, David.
That wasn't the main event. Oh, my God. All right.
Southern Siren saying TNA did something tonight for their women that WWE doesn't. They're building on a feud and not just flinging the belt on someone. Speaking of that, you notice was at the WrestleMania 28 announcement press conference with the Divas Championship, Eve. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's probably why they did it. Pete G9699 saying, it was everyone worked hard, but the booking was awful. Whoever put the women's match together should be fired. Real Keegan Q saying, I disagree with the person that said that Against All Odds was the best pay-per-view of the year. I would have to give it to the Rumble. Dave the Mark, Against All Odds was a fail. And some comments from Twitter. John Petito, huge fail. CC Sheldon, epic fail. Bobby Boucher, fail. Lucas Cabrera, barely pass. Justin Greenwald, fail. And Adam Hayes gives it a pass. David Herro, your final comment, overall, pass or fail for tonight's Against All Odds?
I thought Rihanna was an amazing pass tonight. Absolutely.
Hey, did you get that Justin Bieber link I sent you? I know you missed his performance.
You know what? It was amazing. I clicked on it, and it was rather disturbing. So I have to say thank you. Thank you very much. That's how rumors start, my man. That's how rumors start.
tomorrow night. We're live on ESPN Radio, 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. You can call us live during that program as well. Much more discussion, including with Frank, about tonight's Against All Odds pay-per-view. I would overall give it a pass. Great wrestling, not so well developed stories or written stories, but coming out of it, when the dust settles tomorrow night, I think we're going to find out that this pay-per-view is a bit more substantial and significant than we thought it was. So, with that,
I need 24 hours to sleep on this, and I'll tell you about it tomorrow.
All right. For David Herro, this is Dameon Nelson saying we'll see you tomorrow night with the Honky Tonk Man live on 540 ESPN, streaming live at 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com, and PWRshow.com. Thanks for tuning in.